The most dangerous financial decision of your entire retirement isn't a bad stock pick. It isn't taking out a second mortgage. It isn't even crypto. It's a birthday. Specifically, your 62nd birthday, and what the system is quietly designed to get you to do the moment you hit it. And here's what makes this genuinely sinister. It's not one bad decision. At 62, 3 simultaneous, irreversible financial mechanisms lock into place at once, each one making the next one worse. And the government, I'll show you the math, collects meaningfully more from you when you take the shortcut they're quietly advertising. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly why 62 is the financial equivalent of a trapdoor disguised as a welcome mat. Why the Social Security Administration, and I say this without any conspiracy, just reading the incentive structure out loud, benefits structurally when you claim early. And why the people who wait even by 5 years routinely end up with retirement incomes that are 50, 60, even 77% higher from the exact same lifetime of contributions. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically wrong. It uses BlackRock and Vanguard logic to expose the weak points in your plan. And I only ask for your email to send the report, so I don't store any of your financial data link in the description. Here's the metaphor I'm going to use throughout this entire video. At 62, the government offers you the early bird special. You've seen it at every diner show up before 5 p.m., get the same meal for 30% less. Sounds smart. Senior discount. You've earned it, right? But what nobody tells you at this particular diner, you're eating here every single day for the next 30 years. Every meal. And the portion size never changes. There's no going back to the regular menu once you've ordered. So yes, you saved a few bucks today, but you're going to be sitting in that booth staring at that smaller plate every single morning for the rest of your life. That's age 62. And the early bird special is going to keep coming back in this video because it describes what's happening better than any spreadsheet I could throw at you. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you something that changes the entire math on when to retire a window between 62 and 72 that the financial advisor industry has almost no incentive to tell you about for reasons that are embarrassingly self-serving. But first, let me show you how the early bird special actually works, because the numbers are more brutal than most people realize. Here's a story about a guy named Frank. Frank worked 35 years as a project manager at a mid-sized manufacturing company in Ohio. Smart guy, saved consistently, maxed out his 401k most years. He hit 62 in the spring of 2023, and his Social Security statement says his benefit at 62 would be $1,400 a month. He thinks, that's $16,800 a year. That's real money. I'm tired. I've earned this. He files. What Frank doesn't look at, what the statement buries below the fold, is the next line. His full retirement benefit at 67 would have been $2,000 a month. And if he'd waited until 70, it would have been $2,480 a month. Frank is going to live to 84. The average 62-year-old man in America today, according to Social Security's own actuarial tables, lives to approximately 83.9 years. Frank is average, so let's do the math. From 62 to 84 is 22 years. At $1,400 a month, Frank collects $369,600 over his lifetime. If he'd waited until 78 years later, he'd collect from 70 to 84, which is 14 years at $2,480 a month. That's $416,640. Frank left $47,000 on the table, just from the raw cash flow comparison. And that's before you factor in the compounding on the difference. And that's before you factor in Frank's wife. This is the part almost nobody talks about. When Frank locks in a lower Social Security benefit, he also locks in a lower spousal benefit and a lower survivor benefit. If Frank's wife is younger or healthier or both, she may outlive Frank by a decade. The survivor benefit she receives after he dies is based on his number, not some average, his number, the one he locked in on his 62nd birthday. So she's eating the early bird special too, except she never even got to order. The spousal and survivor benefit angle turns this from a bad individual decision into a bad household decision that compounds across 2 lifetimes. That $47,000 gap I just showed you for a married couple with a meaningful age difference, realistic research puts the lifetime Social Security loss in the range of $100,000 to $200,000. That figure comes from National Bureau of Economic Research analysis of claiming behavior, not theory. Documented losses from real claiming decisions. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but Frank got 8 years of payments he wouldn't have gotten if he waited. What's the break-even point? If Frank waits until 67, the break-even age, the exact point where the higher benefit surpasses the total he would have collected by claiming early, is approximately 78 to 79. If he waits until 70, it's around 80 to 81. The average 62-year-old man lives to 84. Frank crosses the break-even, and if his wife survives him, the household crosses it by a country mile. Roughly 30% of Americans claim Social Security at 62, the earliest possible age. 30%. It is consistently the single most common claiming age in the country. The system didn't accidentally make 62 the default. The system made 62 feel inevitable. The early bird special is the most popular item on the menu. That should scare you at least a little. Here's the part where it gets genuinely absurd. The Social Security Administration publishes in plain English on their own website that claiming early results in a permanent reduction. They call it a reduction factor. They're not hiding it. It's right there. And still, 30% of people pull the trigger at 62. That's not ignorance. That's psychology. And psychology, it turns out, is the actual problem. Stay with me, because this next part changes how you should think about the entire decade from 60 to 70. Because the Social Security timing mistake is the obvious problem. But there's a second mechanism hiding underneath it that costs people hundreds of thousands of dollars. And almost nobody in the financial media talks about it with any specificity. This is where the early bird special starts doing real structural damage. I call it the Roth conversion window. And most people either don't know it exists or they accidentally slam it shut the moment they file for Social Security early. Here's how it works. When you retire at 62, if you do it correctly, you enter a period of unusually low taxable income. You're not getting a paycheck anymore. You haven't started Social Security yet, if you wait. Your required minimum distributions from your 401k or traditional IRA don't kick in until age 73 under the Secure Act 2.0 passed in late 2022. So for a window that could span 3 to 10 years, your taxable income is unusually low. This is your chance to convert money from a traditional IRA, which will be fully taxed when you withdraw it later, into a Roth IRA, which grows and distributes tax-free forever. You pay the conversion tax now at your unusually low rate on your terms. Then you never pay tax on that money again. Here's the thing about this window. It's time limited and it's irreversible in both directions. If you don't use it, you can't go back. And if you accidentally blow it by, say, claiming Social Security at 62 and adding $16,800 in taxable income to your return every year you make, every dollar you convert more expensive because you've pushed yourself into a higher bracket. Let me make this concrete. Say you have $400,000 in a traditional IRA at age 62. You retire, your income is low, you're in the 12% federal tax bracket. You could convert $40,000 a year over 10 years, paying 12% on each conversion. That's $4,800 per year in taxes. $48,000 total across the decade. Now imagine instead you skip the conversions. Your traditional IRA grows to $650,000 by age 73, and then the government forces you to start taking required minimum distributions. On a $650,000 IRA, your first RMD is roughly $25,000. That's year one. It grows every year after that because the balance grows and the divisor shrinks. You're now generating taxable income you didn't want, potentially pushing yourself into the 22% bracket, and then IRMAA kicks in. IRMAA is the income-related monthly adjustment amount, Medicare surcharge for higher earners. In 2025, it starts above $106,000 of modified adjusted gross income for a single filer. A growing RMD combined with investment dividends can push you over that threshold. Your Medicare Part B premium jumps from $174.70 a month to $244.60 at the first IRMAA tier. That's almost $70 additional a month, every month, for potentially the rest of your life. So claiming Social Security early doesn't just lock in a smaller check, it shrinks the Roth conversion window, which means you pay more taxes on your IRA later, which means your RMDs balloon, which means your Medicare premiums may jump. It's a cascade of smaller plates stacked on top of each other, served every morning for the rest of your life. By the way, hit subscribe if you like the content, otherwise YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Meanwhile, your financial advisor, who earns 1% per year on your traditional IRA balance, is looking at your Roth conversion plan and thinking, if I help him move this to Roth, I lose my fee on the growth. Let me just tell him to keep it traditional and add some target date funds. And then he says, with a completely straight face, Roth conversions are very complicated. They are not complicated. A Roth conversion is a form you fill out, but I digress. I want to introduce you to a character I'm going to call Margaret. Margaret is 61. She's a retired teacher from suburban Georgia. She has $420,000 in a 403B, basically a teacher's 401k, and she's been planning to retire at 62 for 4 years. She has a Post-it note on her fridge that says June 2026. She's been crossing off the months. Margaret is going to come back later in this video because Margaret is about to make a decision that will define the next 25 years of her financial life. And the most dangerous part isn't the decision itself, it's how certain she feels about it. Now here's what nobody is telling you about age 62. And this one isn't about Social Security at all. Before I get deeper into the Roth mechanics, I want you to focus on one number, 3. 3 years, because Medicare starts at 65. Not 62, 65. And that 3-year gap is one of the most quietly destructive accidents in the entire American retirement system. Say you retire at 62, you're healthy, you just want out of the office. What does health insurance cost for those 3 years before Medicare kicks in? Under the Affordable Care Act marketplace in 2025, a 62-year-old non-smoking male in a mid-cost state is looking at roughly $800 to $1,200 per month for a silver level plan before subsidies. If his household income is above 400% of the federal poverty level, which for a single person is about $60,000, he gets no subsidies. For a couple, you're looking at $1,500 to $2,200 per month combined, depending on the state. 3 years. At $1,800 a month average for a couple, that's $64,800 out of pocket just to reach Medicare. And here's the trap inside the trap. That $64,800 comes from somewhere. It usually comes from your investment portfolio, which means you're drawing down your accounts 3 years earlier than planned, which means sequence of returns risk spikes dramatically. Here's a parable. 2 brothers, David and Michael, both retire with $500,000 in a diversified portfolio. Same average annual return over 30 years, 6%. Identical numbers. But David retires in a strong year. Markets climb in his first 3 years. Michael retires in a rough year. Markets drop 30% in his first 2 years. After 30 years, David still has approximately $800,000. Michael is completely broke at year 17, ran out of money, with the exact same average returns over the exact same period. The difference is purely the sequence. When you're withdrawing from a portfolio and the market drops early, you're forced to sell shares at low prices to cover living expenses. Those shares don't come back. When the market recovers, you own fewer shares to participate in the recovery. The compounding engine is permanently damaged. Now imagine what happens at 62. You retire, you're pulling money out for health insurance, $1,800 a month. You're drawing down for general living expenses. And if the market has a rough year in 2026 or 2027, which I'm not predicting, but markets do have rough years, and we're not exactly in a low volatility environment right now. You're liquidating your long-term growth assets at the worst structural moment. This is why 62 is architecturally dangerous. All 3 mechanisms activate simultaneously. You lock in a permanently reduced Social Security benefit, you squander the Roth conversion window or narrow it significantly, and you open a 3-year healthcare gap that forces early portfolio withdrawals and amplifies sequence of returns risk. Each one alone is a manageable setback. Together, they are the early bird special, with a side of financial food poisoning that takes decades to fully digest. Here's a number that should rearrange how you think about all of this. According to documented research from the National Bureau of Economic Research, the typical American household loses between $100,000 and $200,000 in lifetime Social Security income by claiming at a suboptimal time, not by investing badly, not by picking terrible funds or timing the market wrong, by filling out one form on one specific birthday. That's a loss with no market risk attached to it. It's a voluntary administrative haircut dressed up as an entitlement. I've saved the most interesting piece for last. And this one is purely psychological, which means it's the one that will actually affect you most, because psychological risks are the ones we're worst at seeing in ourselves. Margaret is back. Remember Margaret, the teacher from Georgia with a Post-it note on the fridge? Here's what happens the spring before she turns 62. She starts feeling anxious. The market's been choppy. She reads a few headlines about the federal deficit and hears something on the radio about Social Security running short of money. Her brother-in-law, smart guy, runs a small business, done okay, tells her at Thanksgiving dinner, grab your Social Security as soon as you can because it might not be there in 20 years. So Margaret claims at 62. She locks in her reduced benefit, $1,200 a month. And then something interesting happens to her brain. She now has guaranteed income. $1,200 a month, every month, no matter what the market does. It's not a lot, but it's certain. And certainty, to a human brain in a state of anxiety, feels like wealth. It feels like protection. Here's the trap. Because she has that certainty, Margaret starts taking more risk with the rest of her portfolio. She doesn't consciously decide to, but subconsciously, the guaranteed monthly check makes her feel like she can afford to reach for higher returns. She moves into a more aggressive allocation. She hears about a dividend growth strategy from someone in her book club. She's not reckless. She thinks she's being rational. She has the floor. Now she can reach for the ceiling. Research in behavioral economics, specifically what Daniel Kahneman describes as mental accounting, shows that people treat money differently based on its source and its perceived certainty. The Social Security check becomes the safe pile in Margaret's brain. The $420,000 in her 403B becomes the risk pile, and the risk pile gets treated as risk capital. If Margaret had waited until 67, her monthly benefit would have been $1,700. If she'd waited until 70, it would have been $2,112. That guarantee floor would have been 76% higher. She could have taken meaningfully less portfolio risk because the floor itself was covering so much more of her monthly living expenses. Lower floor, riskier pile. Higher floor, calmer pile. The Social Security timing decision and the investment allocation decision are not separate choices. They're the same choice. And here's the thing about Social Security running out. The program is projected to be able to pay roughly 80 to 83% of scheduled benefits, even under the worst case scenario, if Congress does absolutely nothing between now and when the trust fund reaches projected insolvency around 2033 to 2035. Congress raised the payroll tax in 1983 and kicked that crisis down the road. They'll do something again. Betting that Social Security disappears entirely is not a financial strategy. It's anxiety speaking through your brother-in-law's mouth at a Thanksgiving dinner, and it's costing people real money. You think the problem with claiming Social Security at 62 is the reduced monthly benefit. You think the solution is to wait. But actually, the deeper problem is that claiming early sends a signal to your brain retirement has officially started, and that signal contaminates every financial decision you make afterward. It reshapes your risk tolerance, your tax strategy, your healthcare timeline, your spending behavior. The benefit reduction is a math problem. The signal problem is a brain problem. And historically, across the entire history of personal finance, we are dramatically worse at solving brain problems than math problems. In 1983, Ronald Reagan signed the Social Security amendments that gradually raised the full retirement age from 65 to 67. The explicit stated reason: people were living longer and the original math had drifted out of alignment with reality. That was 42 years ago. Average life expectancy at 62 has increased by roughly 2 to 3 years since that reform. The math has drifted out of alignment again. The earliest claiming age, 62, hasn't moved in decades. If the system were calibrated to current life expectancy data, 62 wouldn't even be on the menu, but it is, and it's the most popular item. Let me walk you through two versions of the same person. Call him James. He's 61 right now. In early 2026, he has $600,000 in his traditional IRA and 401k combined. His Social Security benefit at 62 would be $1,600 a month. At 67, $2,280. At 70, $2,832. He lives in a state with moderate cost of living. His basic monthly expenses are $3,500. Version 1. James claims at 62. He gets $1,600 a month from Social Security. He needs to pull $1,900 from his portfolio every month to cover the gap. He also needs to pay for health insurance. Call it $900 a month for 3 years until Medicare kicks in at 65. So for that first 3 years, he's pulling $2,800 per month from his accounts. From 62 to 65, that's approximately $100,800 out of the portfolio before factoring in any investment growth or loss. His portfolio is now sitting around $530,000, assuming a relatively calm 4% growth during that period, which, to be clear, is not guaranteed. His monthly withdrawal drops to $1,900 after Medicare kicks in. He has not done any Roth conversions because his Social Security income is pushing him into a less favorable bracket for conversion math. He keeps telling himself he'll deal with it next year. By 73, his traditional IRA has grown, but he's been drawing from it modestly. It's worth approximately $460,000. His first required minimum distribution, roughly $17,779. That's taxable income he did not request. He's paying tax on money he already contributed to, now at a higher rate than he would have paid during the conversion window a decade earlier. Version 2. James decides to wait on Social Security. He retires but doesn't file. He lives on his portfolio from 62 to 67, drawing roughly $4,400 a month, including that $900 in health insurance until 65. Over 5 years, he pulls approximately $264,000 from his accounts. His portfolio takes a real hit. It's down to about $385,000. But then at 67, Social Security kicks in at $2,280 a month. His monthly shortfall from the portfolio drops to $1,220, a fraction of what it was in version 1. And between 62 and 67, in the years when his bracket was low, he converted $120,000 from traditional IRA to Roth. He paid taxes at the 12% federal bracket. That's $14,400 in total conversion taxes across 5 years. Now that $120,000 grows in a Roth account tax-free forever, not subject to RMDs, available for emergencies or legacy. His traditional IRA at 73 is meaningfully smaller, call it $280,000. His first RMD is about $10,800. His modified adjusted gross income stays below the IRMAA threshold. His Medicare premiums stay at the base rate. His Roth account has grown to approximately $180,000, sitting there clean and tax-free. By 82, both versions of James are alive. Early claiming, James has taken about $331,000 in cumulative Social Security payments. Waiting James has taken approximately $366,000 more total, despite starting 5 years later, because the higher monthly check catches up decisively by his late 70s. Early claiming James's combined traditional and Roth portfolio, approximately $430,000. Waiting James, approximately $510,000. That is an $80,000 difference from a single timing decision made at age 62. If both Jameses live to 88, the gap widens past $150,000 because the compounding separation keeps growing. That is not an investing difference. That is not a market timing difference. That is an administrative decision made on one birthday, compounding silently for 26 years. Somewhere right now, a guy named Gary is on hold with the Social Security Administration. He's been on hold for 47 minutes. He's trying to ask a simple question about his claiming options. The hold music is a jazz instrumental from roughly 1994. He is going to give up and claim at 62 because it is the path of least resistance, and the system has made every other path slightly harder. Gary doesn't understand this. Gary thinks he just had bad luck with the hold music. So what does Margaret do? The Margaret who's now in her mid-60s, holding a smaller Social Security check than she could have had, watching her portfolio fluctuate more than she expected because she let anxiety push her into an aggressive allocation, quietly wishing someone had sat down with her before she filed. She does what a lot of people in her situation do. She goes back to work. Not full-time, she picks up substitute teaching a few days a week to add income cushion. The irony is devastating. She retired specifically to stop working, and now she's working part-time to compensate for the financial structure she permanently locked in by moving too fast. The early bird special, it turns out, sometimes sends you back to the kitchen. But here's the actual resolution. At 65, Margaret finds a fee-only financial planner, someone who charges a flat fee for advice, not a percentage of her assets, so their interests are not contaminated by what she does with her money. She starts doing Roth conversions on what's left of her traditional account. Smaller amounts than ideal, but materially better than ignoring the window entirely. She adjusts her allocation to be more conservative, because with a lower income floor, she can't afford the sequence of returns exposure she was carrying. She coordinates the survivor benefit strategy more carefully with her husband's pension. She didn't get back everything she left on the table. You can't. The permanent tattoo doesn't come off, but she stopped the bleeding. And the single most useful thing she did was tell her younger sister, who was 58 and just starting to think about retirement dates, exactly what happened in precise detail. Her sister is going to wait until 67, minimum. Here are 3 things specific to age 62 that are actually actionable, not generic. First, run the break-even math before you file, not after, not during. Take your Social Security benefit at 62, at 67, and at 70. All 3 numbers are on your Social Security statement, which you can access at ssa.gov. Multiply each by 12. Then, build a simple cumulative cash flow table out to age 85 and age 90. Social Security has a life expectancy calculator on their own site. Use it as a starting point. Then add 5 years. Because most people underestimate their longevity. The break-even math is not complicated. It's uncomfortable because it requires you to think about how long you'll live. That discomfort is the reason most people avoid it. Do not avoid it. Second, open the Roth conversion conversation before you retire, not after. If you are between 58 and 64 today, and you have a meaningful balance in a traditional IRA or 401k, the conversion window is real, it is time sensitive, and it is closing. A fee-only fiduciary financial planner, fee only, not commission-based. I emphasize this because the distinction is not Cosmetic can model out the conversion amounts and tax implications in roughly 2 hours. The total tax savings across 20 years from a well-executed conversion strategy in this window can be in the range of $80,000 to $200,000, depending on balance, size. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between a comfortable late retirement and a stressful one. Third, price the healthcare gap before you price your retirement date. Before you commit to a specific retirement age, call a licensed health insurance broker and get an actual marketplace quote for ages 62 through 64 using your real income estimate, your real location, and your real health status. Not a ballpark, an actual quote. For most people, the number is higher than they estimated when they were planning. For many people, it pushes the financially rational retirement date by 12 to 18 months. That extra year of contributions plus the reduced drawdown window can change the entire portfolio trajectory. It doesn't feel exciting to delay for 18 months. It feels annoying. It is also often the difference between running out of money at 82 and not? We started with a birthday, the most dangerous financial birthday in your retirement journey, I claimed. Here's the full picture. The danger isn't that 62 is a bad age. The danger is that 62 is precisely the age when the system hands you a shortcut. And the shortcut is specifically structured, whether by design or by bureaucratic inertia or by pure actuarial convenience. I'll leave that call to you to benefit the system at your expense. The early bird special looks like relief. It looks like you earned it. It looks like the prudent move, especially when anxiety is running the show and your brother-in-law is offering unsolicited Social Security conspiracy theories over turkey and stuffing. 30% of Americans take it every year, permanently. What's remarkable is how quietly it happens. No drama, no obviously bad advice, necessarily. Frank looked at his statement and filed. Margaret had a post-it note on her fridge and felt ready. Gary got tired of holding. None of them felt like they were making the biggest financial mistake of their lives, because the biggest financial mistakes of your life never announce themselves. They arrive looking like paperwork. The early bird special is still on the menu. They'll keep serving it. They'll keep refilling the smaller plate without comment or apology for 30 years because you ordered it once and the kitchen doesn't do refunds. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. And if you still think claiming at 62 is a perfectly neutral personal choice with no mathematical consequence attached, Gary says the hold music has really grown on him and he recommends the wait time.